The worst hurricane to hit this part of Florida in 125 years, everyone. Lots of concern right now, lots of concern about the people in Florida. We want to go momentarily here for just a minute to listen. Let's see if we can do this live to the governor of Florida, who is addressing people at a press conference right now. Let's go over to the Associated Press and just take a quick look at what is currently underway in terms of what he is saying, and then we will get on with the show. But I want to bring the governor, as I said, Ron DeSantis of Florida, to you right now. Let's see.
I guess it could even go over to St. John's if there's enough rain over there.
I'm sure we are.
Yeah, so short answer is we're starting to see some reaction.
So Ron DeSantis answering some of these questions alongside his team there as
we don't see
they confront this challenge there in Florida.
For 24, 48, sometimes as much as 72 hours after the fact. The St. Johns River is a very, very slow responding river. If you remember back during Hurricane Ian, that almost took 45 days.
Big concern right now is the storm surge.
That particular body of water. So again, it's going to take a little bit of time for them to completely react and then obviously go back down.
And I will say, the one thing of this, the storm moved a little bit faster than some of the other ones have moved. Some of these things will just dump water and they go, so slow. This one moved a little bit faster, which is at least when you're talking about the flooding. Is a little bit better than when they're slow.
Is speed the reason that
what does it look like for recovery for some of these counties that were hit particularly hard, like Taylor and Sewanee? I know that Calhoun County was still a mess 4 months, 5 months after Michael.
Well, we're in the process of doing those. Of course, stabilize, rescue, recovery, whatever needs to be done right off the bat, power. Save lives, all that. That's without saying. But then there will be damage assessments to see what all we're looking at in terms of damages in each of these counties. There is going to be debris, of course. That's going to be something that's going to need to be done. These counties are not going to be able to afford that on their own, of course, even with a 75% cost share with the federal government. And so I would imagine that the state would want to help these fiscally constrained counties. The legislature has typically wanted to do that. We may be seeking better cost share as well. But yeah, there's going to be things that are going to need to be taken care of. And these are the counties along that Big Bend. They just have very small budgets, and expenses like this are not things that they could absorb the way some of our wealthier counties could.
Kaner, I just saw actually that there was an oak tree that fell on the governor's mansion here in Tallahassee. And is your wife and kids okay?
The reporter's referring to the oak tree.
She called me probably about 45 minutes ago and told me this is a really, ancient oak tree split in half, and part of it fell. I don't know that it fell on like the residence per se. I think it was a little bit off to the side. So that's going to be cleared. I don't know if they're going to have to cut down the whole tree. If they do cut down the whole tree, that's just going to be more room for my kids to hit baseballs in. And so in some respects for us, even though the tree was nice, we'll probably make do and just be quite all right.
Can you comment on some of the healthcare facilities in these smaller counties? Did any of them have to close for patients?
So I'll let Kevin do. I've spoken with a number of the main chains who had closed hospitals in the Tampa Bay area. They're all doing very, very well. Most of them are, going to be reopening today if they haven't already done that. And of course, they have a footprint further up into the Nature Coast. Do you want to talk about the others?
Yeah. So we did have a couple of assisted living facilities and nursing homes that did have to do some evacuations, but they did that as a part of the evacuations.
This is going to be pretty challenging for Florida.
To date, as of this minute, there have been no reports of any issues inside the health and medical industry, whether that's assisted living facilities, skilled nursing facilities, nursing homes, or hospitals. So everybody is reporting what we would call green, and they're good to go, and everything's all right.
And just as a follow-up, do you know, give or take, how many patients would have had, residents would have had to be transferred?
Yeah. I don't have those numbers right here. We could get with the Agency for Healthcare Administration, Secretary Wida, or even Secretary Latipo and figure out what those numbers actually were.
Can you kind of talk about the discrepancy between some numbers that are being reported on fatalities and the citing FHP and you saying that there's no fatalities?
So there's a process for confirmed fatalities that just goes through law enforcement and medical examiners, and then they do that. And so that has not been done yet, where we've had a confirmation. Now, I know there's unconfirmed reports. Those may end up becoming confirmed. And then, of course, we deal with this in every storm. What is a fatality that is a direct result of the storm versus what would be something where, you have a fatality that's unfortunate, but may not necessarily have a causal factor with the storm. I mean, for example, in Fort Myers Beach, people, there were fatalities because of that storm surge, no question. Well, if you're out the day after the storm and you're picking up debris from your yard and somebody has like a fatal heart episode, does that count as a storm-related death? So they always argue these things backwards and forwards. But when there are confirmed fatalities, those fatalities will be put out by the authorities. But there's just a process that goes through with that. Now, the unconfirmed, I think there have been unconfirmed reports of traffic fatalities. And that may be storm-related. It may be not. Obviously, it was happening within the time that the storm was either approaching or was on target in these various parts of the state of Florida. Okay, we'll have more.
All right, if you're just joining us live right now, we were just listening in there to none other than Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, who was giving us an update on one of the worst hurricanes in more than a century to hit the Big Bend there, hitting landfall in Florida, is coming in as a Cat 3. I mean, this is bad. Like, they haven't seen anything quite like this in 125 years.
Incredible storm surge
with all of you right now. Really just tremendous footage that we saw. Now downgraded to Cat 1. It's making its way at roughly 90 miles an hour into Georgia as we speak. Overnight, it was a Cat 4. A lot of concern here about the storm surge and the threat of the storm surge. You've got about 200 miles there along Florida's west coast, past the Tampa Bay area that's in jeopardy. The Big Bend with a 12 to 16 foot storm surges. So these are quite large. We now are looking at some 270,000 people without power. We're going to get into that, as well as the Biden administration's response and how it differs from that of Maui. Meanwhile, 5,400 emails. Oh my goodness, this is a lot to go through. And you know what? The National Archives doesn't want to give us any of it. I'm going to give you an update on that, and we're going to talk about why this is so important right now. Plus, in other news,
there is breaking news.
You know that lady, right? Well, in other news, that lady may not have a job for much longer, because there's lots of talk right now as Disney shares plummet to a 9-year low of that company getting broken up. And what does that mean? Bye, bye, bye. ABC News, bye ABC, bye The View, or at least it's somebody else's problem. A little good news to tell you about. Check this out.
You are so nice. Guess what? I have a special treat for you. This doesn't always happen, but this does happen when you come to really cool places.
So they got a special treat at Joe Rogan's Comedy Club in Texas last night. I'm going to tell you who was there. Okay, little hint. I can't keep a secret. You know me. His last name is Anthony. So everybody was just absolutely thrilled to see him. We're going to look at that reaction. Plus, oh my goodness, I feel terrible. Terrible for this guy. We got to talk about this. We got to talk about the reality of age. Because we got a few too many lawmakers that are struggling, and it's just not fair. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to their families. And frankly, it's just not fair to Americans, right? This is Mitch McConnell having another incident there today. We'll get into all of it. Welcome to the program, everyone. I am Trish Regan. You are watching a live edition today as we deal with some of the incoming news that's coming out of Florida as this Hurricane Idalia makes her way into Georgia, expected to go up the coast of the Carolinas. We're going to look at the response from the administration, how it differs from Maui, and we're going to look at just exactly what's going on, really and truly, with this Ukraine situation, with Hunter Biden, and all those emails. We are brought to you in part, as always, by LegacyPMInvestments.com. 1-866-589-0560 is their number. Okay, again, beginning with some of this hurricane footage, I just want to get you caught up to speed as we were just listening saying as we began the show here live to the governor of Florida. This is the strongest storm that they have seen since, it's believed, 1896. Thus far, we don't know of any casualties. You just heard the governor of Florida talking about that. Let's hope that that stays consistent. He is saying that there's some talk of maybe some casualties with traffic, etc., but perhaps, and fingers crossed, again, we don't know. They've got search and rescue teams out there right now. The hope is that we're praying nobody has died as a direct result of this storm. The problem now is that so many people may not be able to inhabit their homes. You've got 270,000 people without power, and they can't actually make it back home, right? So they may be looking at homes that are inhabitable for the next 2 weeks, potentially a month. So the administration says that it's doing its part. It's sending out over 1 million meals, over 1 million liters of water, and well, that's good, right? That's good. We're going to discuss whether or not it's because maybe they failed in Maui so badly. Just one other thing I want to get you caught up on. This is a picture right here of the tree outside the governor's mansion in Tallahassee, Florida. Casey DeSantis, that would be Ron DeSantis' wife, she tweeted this out saying, look, this happened. 100-year-old oak tree just split in half, and it's unfortunate, but the good news is no one was hurt. No one was hurt. So that is the good news. And other good news is that the administration is sending the FEMA head right down to Florida to join DeSantis in these rehabilitation recovery efforts. Now, you might say to yourself, you just might say, like, why is he responding so quickly in Florida when it took like forever, right? 13 days for him to really respond in Maui? In fact, if I do recall, when he was asked about Maui while he was on vacation, Joe Biden looked at the reporter with a blank stare and had no comment. Let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, what we saw from Joe Biden after Maui had its devastating, still devastating fires with so many people dead. Look.
About the Hawaii response, Mr. President? Nothing there.
Nothing there. Nothing there. How can there be nothing there? How could you just say nothing? Like, I'm on vacation, so I don't know about Maui? Look, this just came up just a few minutes ago in the press briefing room with Karine Jean-Pierre trying to address a very real question about, like, what the heck? Why? And it's good. Don't get me wrong. Send the FEMA assistance. Send all the assistance you can. 1-some-odd million meals and 1-some-odd million liters of water. That's good news. But what is this? Like, we learn on the job? Take a look.
It seems like the hurricane response so far is robust. Did you guys realize that the initial Hawaii wildfire response was not that good? Or is it just easier for people to get help from the White House when the president is not on vacation?
So the premise of your question and the way you pose your question, I disagree, just for the record. So if you were to do your reporting and speak to the governor of Hawaii, the senators of Hawaii, the folks on the ground, they would say that the president reacted in record time when it came to dealing with the wildfires, when it came to dealing and making sure that they got everything that they need on the federal level to deal with what was going on the ground. Let's not forget there were more than 600 federal employees on the ground already to assist with the wildfires in Maui. So your question is wrong, is flawed in many, many ways, and I would advise you to go speak to the governor and the local and state officials in Hawaii.
Oh, you mean like the Democrats that are there to back you up no matter what? Go talk to the officials, she tells the reporter. Are you kidding me? Why not talk to the people? Why not see how the people feel about Joe Biden's lack of response to their devastation? I'll tell you how the people feel. You know how the people feel. Brace yourself. Hands over the ears for some of you.
Wow, he's finally here. Wow, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for nothing. You. Hey, right here. Hey, you, Joe Biden. You.
Woo! Getting the Brandon treatment there in Maui. Look, that's how the people feel. And I'm not even going to bother playing again for you the kitchen fire story and somehow him trying to equate what he went through with this little tiny situation in his kitchen, which the AP was very forward about making sure everybody knew, the Associated Press, that was no big deal back when it happened. So his little kitchen fire is somehow the same as people losing their lives and their homes and their livelihoods there in Maui. Look, Joe Biden, I don't know why he's suddenly keyed in on Florida. It may have something to do with the reality that Florida is kind of like a battleground state, and he does not want to risk losing Florida. I mean, I think Florida's gone, frankly. I think Florida has kind of been there, seen there, done that. And I think that voters in Florida are really kind of wise to him. But here's the other big question. Here's the question that just I got to get to the bottom of. I'm really perplexed by. I'd be curious, weigh in below, because I want to know what you guys think about this. There's all this money, you see, that's been going to Ukraine, and Biden wants more. And as soon as this Maui thing happened, I imagine Florida will be a similar story. He went to Congress, hat in hand, and he said he needs more money. He wants $40 billion to support, Ukraine, disaster relief here in the U.S. He wants a little bit for the border. I mean, $40 billion. Now, when we divide that up, like we divvy it up, okay, what does he really want and how much does he want here, there, and everywhere? What we find is that the majority of the money is supposed to go to Ukraine. Now, this doesn't have to be, I'm not going to get into, whether it should or not. I'm just going to say it's a lot of money. All right? Like, we've already spent a lot of money. You look at the numbers, and we've spent almost as much as we did 20 years in Afghanistan. We have spent on Ukraine in the last year and change. And now they want more. So $40 billion he's asking for. Well, guess how much goes to Ukraine versus disaster relief here in the U.S.? $24 billion to Ukraine, $12 billion to U.S. What's wrong with that picture? Okay, I got little kids. We've been going through the times table. 12 times 2 is 24. So you're going to give $24 billion to Ukraine and $12 billion to the U.S. for Florida, for Maui, for whatever. Oh, and then there's an additional $4 billion, which you're using to try and shore up the border and to try and stop this fentanyl crisis in the U.S. So let's be generous. We'll call it 16 to the U.S. and $24 billion to Ukraine. I mean, that is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Why? Right? Why? Why do they want to spend so much on Ukraine? Tucker Carlson on his program has been getting to the bottom of this, or trying to anyway, much like me. I want to play you some sound from Tucker's show. We're going to keep talking about this because I've discovered some new things I want to share.
But because Joe Biden and his many allies, from Chuck Schumer to Mitch McConnell to Paul Ryan and every single news anchor on all of television, all of them believe that Ukraine, its borders, its future, its infrastructure are all more important than the town that you live in. They sincerely think that, and it's obvious. Everyone in power thinks that, except for Donald Trump. Whatever else you say about him, Trump is the one guy with an actual shot at becoming president who dissents from Washington's long-standing pointless war agenda. And for that one fact, they're trying to take Trump out before you can vote for him. And that should upset you more than anything that's happened in American politics in your lifetime.
Yeah. Like you're with us or you're against us. And you got to be all in on Ukraine. Though they're not entirely forthcoming on all the reasons why. But we need more money. $24 billion, $12 billion for disaster relief for places like Maui and Florida. So it's a lot of money to be doling out. It's a lot of money to be doling out. And of course, you can't help but ask some pretty important questions like, does anything have to do with the past? Is there anything going on now? We saw just yesterday that Karine Jean-Pierre could not confirm whether or not access to the White House was still being sold. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying we should be worried about these things, given the Biden family's past history in Ukraine. We're talking about a lot of money. We're talking about the need to know where and what these 5,400 emails are all about. So you see, Joe Biden went by various names. We do know about some 10 emails where he was CCing his son on them so that he would know, or his assistant was, Joe Flynn, CCing the son so that the son would know, Hunter would know all about the schedule for the next day. Why does the son need to know the schedule for the next day? I mean, why does that happen? Unless, of course, it's relevant somehow to the son's business. That's what we're trying to track down here. So the National Archives, they were told back in June, thanks to a law center down south that they needed for the Freedom of Information Act. The law center wanted these 5,400 emails. 5,400 emails. And now finally, they've been stonewalling. And by the way, they're still stonewalling. But finally, the National Archives got back to the Southeastern Legal Foundation saying, this is in response to your FOIA request dated June 9th for access to Biden vice presidential records pertaining to all emails from the accounts of Robin Ware 456 at gmail.com, irbware@gmail.com, and Robert L. Peters at pci.gov. Preserved through the National Archives and Records Administration. Your request was received by the Archives Operation Division on June 9th, 2022. FOIA requests for Biden vice presidential records are processed and reviewed for access under provisions of the 1978 Presidential Records Act. So it's saying, we got your note, okay? We got it. We're going to look at it. But they did say at least this: we have performed a search of our collection for vice presidential records related to your request and have identified approximately 5,138 email messages, 25 electronic files, and 200 pages of potentially responsive records that must be processed in order to respond to your request. Please keep in mind that these totals are an estimate and that not all the material processed may be applicable. Wow. So he had his own little email thing going on with some fake names on Gmail. And then there was this PCGov thing, PCI.gov. So we had a server for PCI.gov, which I told you my team and I were trying to track down. Good luck finding that one. PCI.gov clearly must be some kind of personal server for people in government. This is all we found. It's kind of a dead end. But I'll tell you this, we ought to know. We ought to know what was up. We ought to know whether or not the office of the vice presidency was for sale. Because we do know this. We know that Devin Archer, who was the associate with Hunter Biden, has come forward and testified to the House Oversight Committee that they were in the business of selling Biden. That was the gig, right? Remember?
You got to be an expert in knowing the guy, and he was the guy that was the expert in knowing the guy.
He was an expert in knowing the guy.
Right.
And who was the guy he knew?
Well, he knew a lot of people, but obviously there was some familiar, his brother, his father, some of his father's siblings. So he knew a lot of people. And obviously I know you're pointing to, the father being the key relationship.
You think? The father was the key relationship. So if you need to know the guy, and Hunter Biden is the guy that knows the guy, you see, you can go and hire Hunter, and then your message somehow gets through to the big guy. The big guy being, of course, Mr. Biden himself. So the reason this is so weird and this is so much an issue is not just because of all the money right now that's going to Ukraine, but of all the money that Hunter Biden got in the past. $11 million went into Hunter Biden's various LLCs. He had 20 of them that he set up as soon as his father became the vice president. And there was money coming in from China, Romania, and from Ukraine. $11 million from Ukraine between the years 2013 and 2018. And so when Joe Biden goes back and reminisces at the Council on Foreign Relations and tells this little story about how he got a particular prosecutor fired, Victor Shokin, who was running an investigation into Burisma Energy, which just happened to be the consulting client of Hunter Biden and Deborah Archer, the company that was paying Hunter Biden $83,000 a month, the company that sent millions more, allegedly. Well, my gosh, we ought to know what exactly transpired and what emails were happening around the time Joe Biden thought it was smart to fire, or at least have his henchmen over in Ukraine fire the guy that was investigating his son's company.
Well, I was, not I, but...
You might have to turn the volume up on this.
I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Yeah, he got fired. So I want to know. I want to know everything about that. And I want the National Archives to release those emails specifically around that time. Because it just so happens that the guy Biden made sure got fired was the same guy that was leading the investigation into Burisma Energy, the company that was paying Hunter Biden to be the guy to know the guy, right? That's what this is about. So here is Victor Shokin. I've played the soundbite for you in Russian with the translation, but let's listen to him with a translator right now. Victor Shokin speaking about what he believes really went on.
Investigation, we would have found the facts about the corrupt activities that they were engaging in that included both Hunter Biden and Devin Archer and others.
What corrupt activities did you suspect they were engaged in?
It would take half a day for me to discuss every single count, but I can say that Burisma illegally produced, sold, and utilized gas. Zlochevsky, the founder of Burisma, recently made a plea deal with the prosecution in a case where he was accused of giving a $6 million bribe, which is the kind of money that you don't just give away if you're not really engaging in anything illegal. So his plea deal was to cover up a $6 million bribe that he gave earlier.
Wow. So what does that mean? Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. What does that mean? We're going to take a short break. Make sure, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to be back with you in just about 15 minutes or so because we've got some new information coming in. I want to share all of it with you. So don't go anywhere. If you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that. You hit the bell as well. I'll see you right around 5:15. Don't go anywhere. I'm back with more.